Hi, Jamie. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Mind Over Matter Mental Health podcast.
Thank you.
Um, and you're calling from America, so that's great.
I am. I am in the good US of A over here.
Cool. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and if you have any personal story, personal experience you want to share in regards to mental health.
Oh, yes, I would love to. Well, hi, I am Jaime Lynn, and I am actually a Air Force veteran, and I have been a stay-at-home mom. Oh, it was probably about a decade, the last decade, but I had a lot of learning different things as far as teaching myself how to cook and to clean and how to mom. And I also had a lot of challenges with one of my children having um, a lot of issues when it came to ADHD and depression. And currently, I am a international best-selling author for the book Me Too, But Never Again. And I'm also, now that I'm in the empty nester stage coming up very shortly, I'm actually trying to step into finding out my own chapter and sharing my own experiences to help others throughout the world. Oh, I can't hear you.
I put myself on mute because sometimes when the kids make noise, I'll just put it on mute.
No worries. I totally get it.
Yes. I mean, that's what being a mum is. You have to multitask, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's our superpower as moms. We have to do that. And then we have to be the nurse, the doctor, the therapist, the caretaker, the cooker, everything, and the list goes on and on. So, and we're usually doing like 4 of those at once.
Yes, exactly. Um, yeah, so I mean, what made you want to um get started on this
With
in what
mental
you
health.
do?
Oh,
Yes.
you know, growing up, I felt like I was in constant survival mode. I always felt like I had to fix things, and depression and anxiety was very prominent with the family members that I had that I held very near and dear to my heart. And one of them was my parent. And from time to time, um, I unfortunately witnessed a lot of the people that I love suffer, and it had to do with their mental health or lack thereof of mental wellness, and with medications that weren't right in their body. And what really hit me hard was when I ended up having to actually be with my own child who was suffering from depression, and where they ended up having to get hospitalized. And it was at that moment, when you're growing up, you don't really know what is normal and what isn't normal because you really only know your environment. And I was in counseling and in professionals that my father ended up putting me in, just because that's back in the 80s, that's what they did. They ended up putting you in counseling, and there wasn't a lot of knowledge back then. There was a lot of misdiagnosis. Like, for instance, I have family members that was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and now we're finding out it's bipolar. And that's just one example of many. And I was really taken back that, having gone through everything that I went through and witnessed, and I had always felt like I wasn't able to really be a child, because I was always the one that I felt, even as a young child, that I was a caretaker for people, like my mom and my grandma, that really had a lot of challenges. And when my own child came in and they had ended up cutting themselves, I did the whole thing going to the hospital. There was a lot of things that ended up leading up to this situation. And ultimately, I'm in the children's hospital in the area that I'm at. And they tell me that we were lucky because there was a 24-hour hold instead of the normal 72 hours. And I'm like, what? What do you mean 72 hours? And there's a hold. And they tell me that there's 3 campuses that are available to these children and young adults. It's really a lot of young teens. And I'm like, all these questions started coming up, like, what do you mean there's 3 campuses, and why don't I know about this? What is being done? The schools aren't talking about it. It's not on the news. It's like this taboo subject. But for 3 facilities to be filled. So when I ended up going into, just trying as a parent to step back and look at my own child, like, what are they going through? What is the root of the problem? Where are these emotions coming from? There was also medication involved, because there was medication that I was very close to my child who was in counseling at the time, and they were also on medication for ADHD and a medication that they claimed to be a mood enhancer. And I usually would look into things, but being a mom of 3 at the time, and I had, because this was over a decade I was almost a decade now for me going through this. I was really at the mercy of the doctors, and I trusted what they ended up saying to me. So when they told me about the drugs, I just took it as it was, and I didn't do a lot of research. And when I ended up walking into the facility to visit my own child, I ended up seeing all of these children. And one of the children, they couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old. And I literally had to look to the wall, and because it just took my emotions, and I started crying. Like, what is going on with these kids in school, on social media, and their little minds, and older minds, is this development that they feel as if they don't want to live anymore because of depression and anxiety had just taken over. So I started questioning a lot of things. And the first thing, of course, I was at the doctor's and saying, how can I help my child? What can I do? What is there out there? Did I miss something? And, the blame and the shame came on, like, did I fail as a mom? And, all these things when your kid is going through this and you're just trying to figure out, at least in my case, that's what was taunting in my brain. And what it came to realize is that ultimately the medication that they had my child on actually caused more harm than good. And they were very irresponsible giving my child the medication, because one of them ended up being an antipsychotic, and it was not a mood enhancer. And that mixed with the other drug, as well as the amount that they had them on, it was catastrophic to their judgment. It was their entire it was as if they didn't even have a consciousness. There was like no emotion. They would just talk, and it was like almost robotic. And then there was action that ended up taking on from that. And so after my child ended up coming out of the hospital, that was a whole other challenge opened up. And first of all, you don't want to tell a lot as a parent, you're trying to protect your child. So this isn't something that you're really wanting out in the open and having other parents and kids finding out because of bullying and different things. Also, they give you papers, and they ended up putting him on another drug while he was in the hospital. And I started researching myself, because at this point I needed to find, I had to find care after the hospital for them. And I was having a really hard time finding that. I found out that there wasn't a lot of facilities at all. The only facilities that could go for aftercare of something as severe as, suicide prevention or depression or anxiety, any of those things, there were 4-month waiting list. if you were going to admit them in somewhere to a second facility that wasn't a hospital, they had to be on drugs and a rehabilitation. So I was like, let me get this straight. There isn't any prevention. There isn't any health care that I can get. I even tried here to pay cash because in America, we don't have a great healthcare system. And there's a lot of people that don't have health insurance. And it's like either you don't get help, you're on a waiting list, or you have to be on drugs and then you get help. So I was completely taken back by everything. And so what I ended up finding was there was a company called GeneSight. And what GeneSight does is it's a technology to where a test, it's a psychotropic test that provides you with clinician with information, which medications, may require different dose adjustments. And it has a tier system of red, yellow, and green, just like a stoplight, to what that person's specific DNA actually can tolerate and how much their dose can be. And of course it's DNA, so this goes with somebody their whole life. And what I found out is it was something that can be taken at the doctor's office here in America and sent out, and then you get four resolutions back of for opiates, like for pain medicine, for ADHD, and for depression and anxiety meds. And when we got that, it was life changing for us because 2 of the medications that they had my child on was in the red, and it was having the ill side effects. And so it was at that time, because they now had my child on this medication, to where it was they were not getting the proper supervision, I felt, with doctors or with counseling to kind of see how it was affecting them, because the medication was something that had to build up over 30 days in their system. So by the time it built up, when this has happened to so many adults and children throughout this experience with my own child, that these ill effects happen and it's too late. So now you have to try to wean them off, which is another 30-day process to do that. So, there was a lot of moments where I had to wake up and see, did my child take their life today? They would hide weapons under their bed because they didn't feel safe. And, all of this was like this nightmare going on, and the stories that they were telling in their head. And a lot of it was linked to the wrong medication and the lack of what I feel medically that people need when they're put on these kind of medications. And so when I was a child, it brought up where my grandmother was on anxiety medication, and they called it her nerve pill. And they had her mixed with opiates and with antidepressants that were highly addictive, that permanently altered her brain to where she had to permanently take lithium once it was found out, because they didn't have all the knowledge back then. And I felt like, why is something like that happening in the modern day that we're living? And they're just throwing these medications out as experiments on our children and on our society, and it's doing nothing. And so that's where, for me, I really started deep diving, and I wanted to first stop the generational 7 years behind and 7 generations forward, to bring awareness to other parents and awareness to other people whose children could be going through a loved one or themselves. And there is technology out there like GeneSight, and I'm not sure if it's overseas, but I know in America it is, and a lot of people don't know about it. And so those who have went through similar things what my child did, I was able to share with them, because they were having bad reactions that was just excelling the mental health issues even more. And when they took that test, it was life-changing. One of my friends, their doctor called and said they didn't even get the results yet, and they said they need to stop taking this medication right now, and we're putting them on this. And I'm thinking, why is this not a standard protocol that any medication like this is held? Because it could have saved what my child went through. It could have saved what so many others go through. And it's something, at least on our end, that is a technology that is, if not fully covered by insurance, it's a very cheap payment plan to, around $10 to $12 a month. And so, though that was a little bit long-winded, but it was that entire experience and all the knowledge and the deep diving that I had to really do on my own, and really dig in the internet and dig to find and call facilities and ask the right questions to be able to get the solutions to bring forth. And so it's really set me on this path of passionately to serve the greater good, to bring awareness so that other people don't have to go through what my family and my own child had to go through, and us as parents have to go through. So, yeah.
And it's the same here. Like we don't have much help here either. We have the NHS here. And yeah, I mean, they just give you medication and that's it. They leave you to it. So there's not much that they do offer here either. And so I'm guessing you don't agree with the medication then. You prefer the natural method.
So this is with me. Mental illness, and this is in my humble opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional. So this is just coming from my own experience. And I just also want to remark that I'm not being paid by Gene's site, or I haven't told them like, oh, I'm going to go and share this. This is just literally from my experience as a mother, is that, and through the experience as a child, having to view so many adults in these crises, is that I believe that there are certain circumstances that people do require with an imbalanced medication. The problem is that they have to know what medication is going to go with that individual. We are all very uniquely made up with different DNA, and there's proper care that is needed. And our DNA is unique. Therefore, it's going to be unique to the person to see what would work for them. I believe in our case that the right medication can be given, and just that's not having to do with an imbalance that where somebody has been born with or something medically, that it can work as a helper if it's the right one, and it can kind of help. But I feel the biggest thing is that people really, there are ways that we are not taught, and that I believe we should be taught, we should be teaching our children and in schools how to go in and do alternative holistic ways, because I believe those are the cures, because we all go through ups and downs and peaks and valleys in life, and it's learning those, it's coming from toxic coping skills to healthy management. And that's something that we're just not taught. It's something that we just have to kind of figure out on our own, I feel like. And it's hurting people. So I'm not completely necessarily against medication. I am against these happy pills. And at least here, there's doctors that they get kickbacks for prescribing medication. I could go right now to a clinic here and say, hey, I found this drug, can I try it? And they'll just prescribe it to me. Usually they're not doing DNA tests, they're not doing blood tests, they're not asking any assessments, even mentally. It's like, can I try this? So I could go through 5 different medications, which, by the way, I did take a depression medication shortly right before this happened with my own child, because there was a lot of challenges that happened leading up to this. leading up to what happened. And I honestly did not know if I was going to throw up every 10 minutes or it was coming out the other end. And I called the doctor and I said, what is going on? And they said, that's normal. Just keep taking it. Your body needs to get used to it. Well, I ended up going in intuitively myself, and I felt that I wasn't being seen and heard by the doctor. And I felt like I just had this intuitive feeling that it was not a match for me. And so I chose not to take that medication, and I ended up going into counseling instead. So I think it's very unique because mental health is not something that, there are so many tiers to it. And then there are compartments within compartments. So it's not something that is just a one for all. And we need medical professionals to go in and really ask the questions that are needed. And also the right technology, such as the technology that GeneSight has, so that when medication is prescribed, and it can be helpful, but I believe temporary, it doesn't have all of the horrific cycles, and it is a cycle and an experience that it can take you on when you're on the wrong medication.
Yes, and I was going to ask something else. Why do you think they don't have much services out there for us? Do you think it's because they can't be bothered, or I don't know? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you know, and this is pre-COVID that this happened. So I feel like after COVID, at least in America, it's the whole cattywampus. It's something way more extreme, even when I was talking about what they experience. First of all, at least in America, you know, there isn't enough healthcare professionals. I believe that there needs to be an array of different health professionals. Counseling and people being able to speak and ask for help is very important. And sometimes that takes awareness. The problem that we're seeing in America is, first of all, the system is broken and it wasn't good to begin with. And there isn't enough professionals. And I just feel like it's so taboo. There's so many people, even in my own family, that have been raised that you don't talk about things like that. You don't talk about mental health, or if someone has a nervous breakdown. Both of my grandparents had nervous breakdowns. My own mother had a nervous breakdown. And it's on both sides that I see. And it's this thing that people don't want to talk about. And I don't understand why, because it affects so many. And I feel like I asked the same question as you. I'm still asking even now with COVID, or post-COVID, and ongoing, is with all of the social media that's affecting children, the social media that's affecting adults. There isn't any answers. It's almost like they're just still stuck in this theory, and they're just throwing things out. Even though we have these technologies and we have all these things, the only thing that seems to really be done here is when it becomes criminal. And why do people take drugs? People take drugs because they're trying to numb something within them. They just don't wake up and addicted to something. Heroin is something huge here. And a lot of people try to do heroin because they're trying to numb that pain. And then when they get that first hit of heroin, that high is so amazing for them, whatever that feels, that they continue to chase that high. And what I've at least learned from talking to other medical professionals and rehabilitation centers and things, learning more about mental health and how this pandemic has happened, they will never feel that. So that's what they keep chasing on. And then that's how overdoses happen. And so I just feel like the how it's being, the only way it's not ignored is when it starts affecting people criminally. So people start stealing, or they shoot up here, or and I'm talking about with guns, because I forget we're all allowed to have guns here, so in this country. Um and that's another thing, is it being ignored, like you were just talking about. It There's no longer even a stipulation here in America that you even have to have a mental assessment to own something like a gun, which is causing a lot of chaos and issues in our country. So yes, that's I'm
Yeah,
asking the same thing for
that's
you.
a
I
good
just
answer. I know. And how would you, I mean, would you say you're a coach? Like, how would you label yourself?
I do feel like I'm an intuitive coach. Throughout my own personal development, I have taken courses that have really taught a lot of healing. I believe, at least in my case, and I find from a lot of people that have came to me that I have helped, is finding the root of the problem. And a lot of our roots lie in our inner child. There had, according to a lot of the um, seminars and webinars, and oh my gosh, personal development of all different sorts, it said that we don't even have a filter into our consciousness until we're 7 years old. So when you're in a traumatic childhood, like I had a very traumatic childhood, excuse me, we create toxic coping mechanisms. And there isn't anyone in our brain or anybody to say, oh, you're doing this. This isn't the right way. That, do it this way. And instead, we just kind of look in. So, like for me as a child, I ended up using the television. I was an only child, to have my escape. Some people use books. Some people use anger and fighting. And so these coping mechanisms create a toxic lifestyle in a lot of us as adults, because we don't, and the thing is we don't even recognize or realize we're doing them. And I found that out with myself through my own healing journey. And just going through, like for me, I use something called Ho'oponopono, which now that I am an adult, I am able to go within myself and give myself, like I dealt with a lot of rejection. So I'm able to go within as an adult and give that inner child, that little Jamie, that hug and that nurturing that I wasn't able to get as a child from where I felt that I needed it. And that is why it's so important that we teach the at very young ages, before 7 years old, how to meditate, how to go within. When you feel anxiety, what kind of breath work can we do? Just taking 3 deep belly breaths. And then there's food. There's so many chemicals in our food in America. They have this, fat-free, sugar-free. Well, what is replacing that? It's chemicals. It's not even things that our body can break down. And it is, a lot of them are neurotoxins. So then you have those things on top of it. So it's just, there's so many different cycles that I've learned. I'm very much into holistic health and nutrition. I've studied that for years. Even things we put on our skin, different vitamins. You have to even look at different supplements and on how your body is able to break those down. And so, like, one of the things I do that I didn't mention is being a promoter for a new technology that puts you in ketosis without being on the diet. And we're all born into ketosis. And the side effects to that is having a better mood and better focus. And when your body's in ketosis, you're getting about 38% more oxygen to your blood cells, which are going straight to your brain. And so, it's learning what is out there and utilizing that and bringing that to the forefront, and not focus so much on the negative about it, but be solution oriented. And so that is what came to me and my journey. And as I'm even learning more and more about myself and where I fit in and how I can help others, is finding those solutions and bringing them to the forefront. And that's why I'm so thankful to be on your podcast, because to talk about something so near and dear and passionate to my heart. And I am still shocked of how blindsided so many of us, and we are living in so much ignorance, and we don't even realize it. But we know that we just don't feel good. And it's like, how do we feel good?
And yeah, I mean, we are our thoughts, aren't we? We
Yeah.
are our feelings. So it's about training your mind as well, which takes practice, doesn't it?
Joseph McClendon III is just, I love him as a mentor. I've got to see him live several times, and I follow him on Instagram. And one of the things he teaches is a little dance, and it goes, as I think, so I feel, as I feel, so I do, and as I do, so I have. And that, to
That's
me,
true.
yes,
That's so true.
it is. It's the essence. And we're all going to go through these battles and journeys that, these trauma can happen, but it doesn't have to define you. And it's learning how to step out of that prison that we can create in our mind that can really set us free, so that we don't become a victim and stay there. We become a survivor. And that is even in mental health and, PTSD, even in our own military. I'm a veteran, and the VA, they don't help a lot of the veterans like we're supposed to. They have the PTSD, they have so many different things. And even as it's going on right now, on the active duty and being deployed, they still don't have the structure. It's still not being taken care of. And it's all surrounded about the importance of mental health. And on every single avenue that I have experienced in so many different tiers, I don't see a solution to any of them except for the people that are talking and teaching and bringing forth personal development. And so I found more help with life coaches for myself personally. This isn't for everybody, but for personally, but listening to their perspectives, and to know that just because I think a certain way, in my perspective, is only what I'm seeing from my own human experience. But everybody has a different perspective. Everybody has a different experience. And it's knowing that not everybody thinks like you think, but in our own mind, why wouldn't we think everybody thinks like we think? And that's what I found in my journey as well. And so when we can really start going within and having somebody to help us go within to find the root of things within, and have our children learn how to go within and how to do these things, they won't need the drugs to numb things. They won't need the alcohol to drown out things. They will have these new techniques that have been around for, ancient times, that are bringing here now, to where they can actually go within and be freed, and to learn how to calm their emotions and how to center themselves. So yeah, I'll let you ask the next question. I keep going on.
And I know you mentioned something about breathing exercises and going back as if you're a child. What other exercises do you do apart from? Is there any other activities that you do with people to help their mindset and positive thinking?
Well, what I do is very unique. It's very unique to the individual, and that's why I'm really a stickler for, not it's taking the time to, first of all, somebody being feeling seen and heard. And one of the doctors that teaches us, even with our children, that I wish I knew of when I was going through what I was with my child, is Dr. Shafali. And when us being us being seen and heard is so important. And so when somebody comes to me with needing a solution, I just can intuitively know the right questions to ask them. And when I ask the questions, it's questions intentionally that they have to go within to bring out. So ultimately, they're really answering it for themselves. I'm just helping along the right words, or the right feelings that need to come forth, because it's also important to acknowledge when we have bad feelings. It is okay. Like, a lot of us suppress our emotions, especially women. We're taught, we're emotional and this societal blueprint. And, we need to calm down. How many times have we heard that? You need to calm down. And,
or overthinking or something like that.
right. So then we feel these things and we're like, oh, we're not able to. And so I also provide that solution to where, or that I'm going to say, I provide that sacred space that we can acknowledge that. And Ho'oponopono, that specific practice, starts out with saying something like, I don't feel worthy, or I am rejected, or I am not enough. And it starts off with that acknowledgement, so that we can go within the root to find out what that actually is and where that is coming from. And usually I have not yet had somebody not be older than 7 years old that has found that, because there's always something deeper. And that goes back to that not having filter into our subconscious, and those toxic coping skills that I know for myself, I had no idea that I was doing a lot of the things and creating chaos in my own brain, and thinking things that one of the best things I can say to people is, when you have these thoughts, to ask yourself, is this really true? Is this true? And I have yet to find myself ever being able to say, yeah, that is true. No, it's a thought drops in, and then we start creating a story about it. And it's
We've
amazing.
got to believe it as well.
Right. We believe it. And that's where the whole, as I think, so I feel, as I feel, so I do, as I do, so I have. And it's all, I just see it all being connected.
And do you have like a website or where people can access your site, and also a link to your book where they can get it from?
Yes, I will provide you with the links so that you can post it. I am just now getting started. Again, I'm not reinventing myself. I'm stepping in to my next new chapter. So I am getting a site together with the services that I provide, and I apologize for not having that right now ready for you. That's something that I hope to have right after the holidays completely up. I do have something, a link for the technology that I drink that has really helped me with my mental focus and my mood. And it's just, I've even dropped fat off of my body of 35 pounds. I've, feeling that motivation and things. So I also have that link I can provide as well. But when I get the new link with my services, I will definitely give that to you so you can get that posted for me.
Yes. Yes. So for now, you can just send the links, for now, whatever you have. And in the new year, let me know your other links.
Oh, I would love to meet with you again. Also right now I will send you my Facebook and my Instagram. So anybody right now can reach out to me, DM me on Messenger as well, if they're wanting to learn more. And I also can provide a lot of different resources that help for their own children, as far as motivating the teen spirit is something that Lisa Nichols, her son Jelani, actually has taken it over. And that is something that is virtual, that no teen or young adult will ever be left behind. And they have children and young adults helping that are, have went through certification to help them. And it's a safe, sacred space for teens to come that do feel depressed, or they're whatever it is that they're going through. And there are these professionals, I'll just say, that are able to help with that. And because sometimes people just need somebody to listen. They just need somebody to reassure them it's going to be okay, and that they're human, and that we go through ups and downs, and it's a part of this life that we're in.
Yes. And yeah, of course, I'll tag you as well when I post this podcast. And like, is there anything else that you want to share?
I am just very honored that that I had this opportunity to be here with you. Health and mental health is so vital to our inner peace that we can have. And I know that abundance truly and prosperity is our birthright. And all of us are meant to be this way. All of us are meant to live in joy and happiness. And the limiting beliefs that we have can actually hinder us and block us from receiving those things. And so I just have a word that to find somebody, that a professional that you can feel comfortable with, for anybody that is struggling. Reach out to, other parents, that, create a support group in your area. I truly believe my law of life is that to be the change that we want to see in this world. And that starts with us. And we can't wait for our governments to get their stuff together. We can't wait for the medical people to just come up with something. We have to create the solutions. And I believe that we do that collectively. And we can do that by literally reaching out and allowing our society to be open about speaking of things about mental health, and about the significance of it, and about ways to teach our youth so that they don't have to continue to go through these toxic cycles that so many of us have suffered from, especially our children.
That's amazing, really. And it's really good what you do, and I hope that people watching this can relate and take on your advice.
Yes, there's so many personal development coaches. If anybody needs any recommendation, feel free to contact me. I have so many resources that I can share, that I find that I can trust. And there's so many of us, and there's so many people out there that are like me, that want, just like yourself, having this awareness with your podcast, that is reaching out, that you know it's kind of networking to find out who is where as well. So I love that we can connect and we can share. And I just believe the future is I can see it and feel it, that the future is going to finally be different. We literally are changing and busting down the walls and the boundaries, and saying enough is enough. We are done, and we're changing them. So
Yes, that's
I'm
great.
honored, and I thank you again for having me.
thank you so much for participating, and um, it's been great. And I'm going to post this as well. So I'll just stop the recording.